Hello guys, welcome to the show this morning. Really glad to have all you guys here. Well, today is Sunday, and so I'm doing a Sunday show. And it's going to be about gold and Basel 3 and the effects that that's going to have on the price of silver and gold. But, you guys have to understand something. Well, first off, I'm going to talk just for about 2 minutes about Theresa May and the Brexit, just for a second. And let's turn on the charts right here. And the first thing I want to say is Theresa May has single-handedly nearly destroyed England all by herself. And I don't think she actually meant to, but she's a very poor negotiator. Now, you have to understand that when she went over to negotiate this deal that she's got right now with the European Union, of course the European Union is going to try to put this deal in place to favor them. Now, her job is to come to some sort of an arrangement with the European Union that favors England. But I don't think she did that. I just think she went along with everything that they said in the deal. So she negotiated a bad deal, obviously. Now, that would have been okay if she had been willing to give up on that deal, go back and renegotiate a good deal. She had her chance. But no, she stuck doggedly to the bad deal. She determinedly stuck to this bad deal to the bitter end. And now, you know what? She's going to be gone. She's going to be gone in a few days. Now, here's what I want to say. In countries like North Korea, if you take a photograph in the wrong place, you end up 20 years in a gulag. And believe me, a North Korean gulag is not a place where you want to be. A gulag is a really bad prison, It's not a place where you want to be. But this is what I'm watching for. I know the rule of law. England is a country that's under the rule of law. After she goes as Prime Minister, after she's nearly single-handedly destroyed England all by herself, will she live a cushy life the rest of her life? Will she have some sort of a big giant house on a hill someplace where she's got servants or whatever and she's got this big huge paycheck coming in every month? Or is there some sort of a punishment for her nearly destroying England by herself, I'm waiting and watching to see what actually happens in this situation. But here's the thing. If I was the in charge of all of England right now, you know what I mean? Believe me, she would not escape scot-free. I'll tell you what I would do. I would go through England and find some old, dilapidated, great big giant building someplace, some old warehouse or something. And I would go back to Charles Dickens times, and I would turn it into a Charles Dickens style workhouse, just like in the show David Copperfield, and I would have it full of these bad boys that have done bad things, and she would be right in there, and she'd have to wear a sign on her back that says, "Kick me, I'm a biter." And every morning she'd have to go for her porridge, and she'd have to hold her bowl out and say, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" Anyway, I'm daydreaming. And of course I'm joking. But now let's take a look here at Basel 3 and what's going on with gold and silver with Basel 3. You know what? Basel 3 allows the banks to count, now at this point, to count gold as a Tier 1 asset. It says, in a never-ending and important debate over whether gold is money, there should never have been that debate. Of course gold's money. There is a voice that has recently spoken, and you might want to hear what it said. Many voices worth listening to have said gold has no utility. For example, Warren Buffett is famous for saying, "We dig gold out of the ground, then we melt it down, dig another hole, bury it again, and pay people to stand around guarding it. It has no utility," he says. Anyone watching from Mars would be scratching their head. But there is another voice, much more important than Warren Buffett, that has, in the last 6 months, uttered the opposing view. It is not the voice of a newsletter or an analyst or an expert or any one person, Although it may agree with this voice, including me, it is actually the voice of a group of a club that has been described as the most exclusive, secretive, and powerful club in the world. The New York Times has called them the secretive panel that establishes global banking rules. The central bank of central banks. They meet 4 times a year in a little-known town called Basel in Switzerland. Well, what they've done is they've decided that under Basel III, gold's going to be a Tier 1 asset. So I mean, what's going to happen? An awful lot of people out there who have gold and who have silver right now at this point, they're thinking to themselves, hey, you know what? Gold's going to shoot to the moon immediately as soon as it becomes a Tier 1 asset on the banks, for the banks, because the banks are going to hoard it. Well, I'm sorry. Sorry to tell you guys this, but it's probably not going to happen that way. The banks are not immediately going to run right out and buy a whole bunch of gold to count as their Tier 1 capital. It's not going to work like that at all. The banks are all dollar denominated at this point, and they count dollars as their Tier 1 capital, and they already have their Tier 1 capital in place. They're not going to rush out and exchange those dollars for gold, not right now. But here's the point I want to make. As we move into this financial crisis, and this financial crisis starts to speed up, then you're going to actually see, when the system actually starts to cave in, the dollar actually starts to lose its purchasing power big time. It starts to go into a hyperinflation. This is setting the stage for the banks. And when they do start to gobble up the gold as a Tier 1 capital asset, we also have to consider China. China's got over 20,000 tons of gold. Now, they don't say they have that much gold, but with the click of a mouse button, it could be revealed how much gold they actually have. China has so much gold that they could quite literally, using the Shanghai Gold Exchange, they could quite literally reprice the price of gold overnight. At the same time, you get the dollar going into profound inflation. You're going to find that these bankers are not stupid. It's at that moment in time, because this is the groundwork's already been laid that they can count gold as a Tier 1 asset, that there's going to be a mad dash or a mad scramble by the banks to try to allocate gold, because at that point, gold's going to be going up massively. We could be seeing moves of $100 a day, $200 a day up in price, right? And the bankers are going to see the value and purchasing power of their dollars going down in compared to gold. It's at that point there's going to be a mad rush by these bankers. Now, you know how much money is involved in all this? And what kind of prices at that point that they... See, we need a trigger event to make all of this happen. Well, guess what, guys? We got the trigger event coming. The world right now is heading into a recession. Now, it's only going to move into this recession so far before it triggers the central banks to go into what I call the Great Print, which is where they try to get us out of the recession. Just like they did in 2008, they tried to get us out of the recession by creating voluminous amounts of capital. Well, you know, the central bank in the United States, the Federal Reserve, has been in a tightening process. And we didn't really see the effects of this tightening process until now. Now we're starting to see the effects. That's because there's a lag period between when they actually do the tightening and when the effects actually start to come in. The effects of their tightening. Well, it's the same way when they start the Great Print. They've already begun, actually. The Federal Reserve is going backwards on their quantitative tightening. They're going to end it pretty soon. And also, they're not raising interest rates anymore. In fact, we're going to probably see them start to lower interest rates. All in an effect to try to slow down this. But what we haven't seen yet is the helicopter money. And what helicopter money is, a lot of people hear me use the term helicopter money and they don't understand what that really is. During quantitative easing, when they distributed money to Wall Street and they bailed out all the big banks in 2008 with voluminous amounts of money, they never did helicopter money because all that money actually went into the banking system and went into Wall Street. And it propped up the Wall Street markets. It propped up the big boys who had access to that money. And the smaller people like us, we didn't get any of that money. It never flowed down to us. But helicopter money is different. Helicopter money is when they directly inject it into the people through social programs. Like one of the main forms of helicopter money would be something that they call a universal basic income. And if you guys got a lot of you guys that listen to my show, you know, you're normal working class people and you have a working class job. Believe it or not, universal basic income will pay you as much as your working class job does now to sit at home and do nothing. And this is one of the social programs that they're weighing as one of their options to combat the next crisis. And believe me, they can put these social programs in overnight when they're trying to push them through. And what this does is this pushes the money in the great print. This will push the money down to the people. But what this causes hyperinflation. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't just end with a universal basic income. They also collect your taxes every year, your income tax. They have in the United States, they have a social security number, and here in Canada, we have a social insurance number. It's the same basic program. What they do is they can look at that, your social security number, and they can know exactly how much money you've paid in your entire life in taxes. They could rebate that to you in one big check, part, if not all, of the taxes you've paid in your entire life. This is what helicopter money is. And what this causes, the end result of it is, when you get this money, if they have to go to helicopter money and they cut you a big check from the government as a tax rebate, and they also maybe put you, or maybe they might put your kids or your wife or somebody, say there's one person in the house that works, all of the rest of the people in your family will be able to go out and collect the universal basic income as well. So all of a sudden you'll have a huge amount of money flowing into your household. Well, let's go out and pay off the credit cards, honey. You know, let's go out and buy a new car. Listen, I'm going to tell you what. You better run to get that new car, because if the price of that new car today is $14,900, tomorrow it'll be $15,900, and the following week it'll be $21,900. This creates a mad dash to purchase goods and services. Not just on Wall Street, but on Main Street. Hyperinflation. It's at that point in time, when the purchasing power of these dollars is going downhill so fast, the purchasing power of gold will be going in the opposite direction. Gold will be going up like a rocket to Mars. It's at that point that the bankers are going to do their mad rush to satisfy this Basel III contract, where it says that gold can be a Tier 1 capital. This is setting the stage. That's what this is doing. It's setting the stage for that. This is not going to occur yet. It's not ready for this yet. It's going to be ready for it after the crisis that's coming stimulates helicopter money. Listen, thank you guys for listening to this report, and we'll catch you again tomorrow morning on the Market Report. Bye-bye, guys.